and welcome to the Catholic Herald podcast. We've got stories you won't find anywhere else. I'm Zoey Maraist, staff writer for the Herald, and I'm joined today by Kevin O'Malley, a parishioner of St. Veronica Church in Chantilly and the MLB coordinator for Catholic Athletes for Christ. Now, even before we jump into why you're here, can you tell us what is Catholic Athletes for Christ?
Sure. No, my pleasure, and thank you for having us. 2006, we founded CAC, Ray McKenna, another Arlington Diocese parishioner. And really it's for two purposes. One, to assist professional athletes in the practice of their Catholic faith, but also to provide them opportunities to live out the gospel and preach it in and through sports. And so since 2006, we work principally with Major League Baseball and the National Football League and coordinating, facilitating Catholic Mass for the athletes. In addition, we have high school chapters, we have speakers bureaus, and it's just a great organization here in Arlington. And my role, as you mentioned, is with Major League Baseball. A lot of folks don't understand that Major League Baseball, the schedule each weekend is extremely grueling, playing late Saturday evening games. They don't get home till midnight. Folks don't realize for a 1:30 start, many of them are back into the clubhouse by 8:30, 9 a.m.
Wow.
And so we bring masses, in Major League Baseball's case, right into the stadiums. And so they can just walk 10, 20 feet to the press conference room and be able to fulfill their Catholic responsibility by attending Mass.
That's wonderful. And I'm sure that the priests like that too.
They do. And it's a great organization. Anyone interested can go to CatholicAthletesForChrist.org. We do have the support of the Vatican when this organization was created, and we have an Episcopal board made up of bishops and cardinals, and in fact, Bishop Burbidge is one of our Episcopal board members, so we're proud and happy to have him on that board.
Awesome. Well, I know he's a big sports fan too.
He is indeed.
Jumping into the meat of it, you all just partnered with a production company called Spirit Juice to produce a 30-minute documentary on Gil Hodges. And for those of you who aren't baseball fans, a quick rundown on Gil. He grew up in Indiana. He served in World War II, was a loving husband and father, a devout Catholic, and he played some great baseball. Quoting from the documentary website now, it says, quote, his quiet leadership led the Dodgers to multiple National League championships in Brooklyn, culminating in a World Series victory in 1955. He is acknowledged as the unquestioned leader of those iconic Dodgers teams that included 6 Hall of Fame players. He later helped the Dodgers win the World Series in 1959, following the team's move to Los Angeles. As a manager, he guided the New York, quote-unquote, Miracle Mets to an against all odds World Series victory over the Baltimore Orioles in 1969. So, Kevin, when you read all his accomplishments, it's easy to see why you guys were interested in this, but what kickstarted the project?
Sure. So in 2016, working with CAC, I developed and directed a rosary recording by legendary Dodger broadcaster Vin Scully. He was nearing the end of his 67-year run with the Dodgers as the broadcaster, devout Catholic man, and I just had this concept that we're going to make a rosary CD, which we did. And in working through that project, worked with a lot in the Dodgers organization and kept hearing just on sidebar conversations about Gil Hodges. And I knew the name, but I didn't know the story. And I found out, as years later, that that's the case with a lot of both baseball fans and just general followers of sports. And so started doing research on Hodges, read his biography, and the light bulb, really the Holy Spirit coming into my mind said, this is an amazing story about not just a great ball player, great Catholic man, a great American. How has nobody produced a film about this guy? And again, then the light bulb went off and I said, I'm going to make a film about this guy. Of course, not having any idea where to start, but I did enlist David Nalieri, who's an Emmy Award-winning director and writer, and the folks at Spirit Juice, who have also produced Catholic films receiving Emmy Awards. Got them involved. They had the same passion and excitement as I did, that this is an amazing story that's never been told. So raised some initial funding from some investors, and off we went, traveling the country, interviewing folks who either knew Hodges, former teammates, players that played for him in New York. And over the last 5 years, 4.5, almost 5 years, we've got to the point where last Monday we were able to finally release it publicly on gilhodgesfilm.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I certainly learned a lot. It was very interesting and beautiful, just beautiful to watch.
No, thank you.
One of the things that was really interesting to me was Gil's friendship and support of Jackie Robinson, very well known, his teammate on the Dodgers and the first African-American MLB player. Can you tell us about their relationship?
Sure, and that's one of the areas we really focused on in this film, as you know. Gil, being a very quiet leader, a humble man, is not the type that was bragging about how well his efforts to help Jackie Robinson in his integration. And we learned a lot about that relationship. The Hodges family, both Gil and his wife Joan, befriended Jackie and Rachel Robinson when they first were coming into Brooklyn. Were able to kind of shuttle Mrs. Robinson around to meet the other teammates' wives. A great story, it's not in the film, but we've heard, is that when the Dodgers would go to spring training in Vero Beach, Florida, at that time, African Americans were not allowed to shop in certain grocery stores down in Florida.
Wow.
And it was Mr. and Mrs. Hodges who did the grocery shopping for the Robinsons. But really, I think the best way to summarize that relationship, sadly, was at Gil Hodges' funeral. He died 2 days short of his 48th birthday in April of 1972. Heart attack, gone instantly, sadly. And at the funeral, which was incredibly well attended by New York celebrities and politicians and former ball players, but also just the average fan living in Brooklyn, at the end of it, Howard Cosell, famed sportscaster, went and got Gil Jr. and brought him to a car where Jackie Robinson was sitting, hysterically crying. Gave Gil a hug and said, "Next to my son's death, today is the worst day of my life."
Wow.
And that really summarizes, I think, how important Robinson, or his relationship with Hodges, and how important Hodges was to Jackie Robinson. When Robinson first came into baseball, there were a lot of opposing teams that took cheap shots at Robinson,
Sure.
sliding hard into second base where Jackie played, or taking pot shots at him here and there, throwing the ball at him when he was at bat. And it was Hodges, who was the hulk of a man, a large man, who quietly was the enforcer and took care of business on the field as it needed to protect Robinson in every case.
Very cool. And in this documentary, you guys make a pretty heavy-handed pitch for including Gil Hodges in the Hall of Fame.
We do.
Why was that so important to you and to other fans?
Sure. So this has been a debate that's almost 5 decades old. As I mentioned, Hodges passed away in 1972, played for 18 years, and then went on to manage both the Washington Senators here in D.C.
That's right.
And then back with the New York Mets until his passing in the spring of 72. And he has received more votes than any player not inducted into the Hall, over 3,000 votes during his time on the Baseball Writers Association vote. He's been part of veterans committees where his vote has come one vote short. So that's, for baseball fans, there's been long a debate, how is Gil Hodges not in the Hall of Fame? And what we focus in on this movie is not just his playing statistics and managerial accomplishments, but there is actually a clause in the Hall of Fame induction voting rules that says that the voters need to consider the integrity, the sportsmanship, and the character of the individual. And what we're trying to show in this film, and hopefully the voters will see it, is that when you combine those three, his playing career, his managerial accomplishments, and what he meant to that team on and off the field, whether it's social justice, whether it's just being a quiet but effective leader for those Dodger teams, it's a no-brainer he should be in. The Hall of Fame often uses that clause about character, sportsmanship, integrity to the negative. They use that when they need to keep people out. Steroids being the most obvious in recent years, keeping folks like Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens out of the Hall of Fame. Their playing numbers surely would put them in, but they use that clause. They've never used that clause in the affirmative to say, here's a ball player whose numbers maybe are right on the border, but if you in fact use that clause in the affirmative, he should get in with ease. But that hasn't been the case yet. So really part of the focus of our film was highlighting that clause, and that let's use this finally to put somebody in who had the highest character, high values.
Yeah, I think that really shines through in the documentary. Gil is clearly an inspiring man, but one of the qualities he has is steadfast faith. I guess in doing the documentary, how did that impact your own faith life? What stood out to you?
His humility. The more we talked to folks and spoke with folks to interview them, the more we researched. He was not a man, unlike a lot of sports athletes today, who the minute there's a reporter or a camera, they're first in line to get their picture taken, to speak, to be on television. That was not Gil Hodges. And so he demonstrated through his faith, through the virtue of humility, the ability to be effective, to be an incredible ball player, an 8-time All-Star, a 3-time world champion, and do it quietly, and to take care of and practice it, live out his faith in a humble way without any fanfare. I think, to me, that's what jumped out the most in doing this film.
Yeah, there was, I think the most kind of like overt anecdote that was shared was one time he was on a plane on Friday, and the stewardess gave him a steak, and he said, "I'm too close to the boss to be eating meat on
story.
Friday."
Yeah, Vince Scully told that story.
Okay,
It's classic.
Awesome. Well, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
I would encourage listeners, viewers, to go watch it. It's only 30 minutes long at gilhodgesfilm.com. And one of the things you learn in the film is that Gil Hodges had three priorities in life that never wavered. And that was God 1, family 2, country 3, and baseball, I assume, was 4. And this film, to me, captures all 4 of those areas, those priorities. And so I tell people, what kind of film is this? I said, well, it is a baseball film. It's an American film. It's a film about God and his Catholic faith. And it's a baseball film. So for anyone who has any interest in those areas, I think it's a great film. We've heard from a lot of parents already about how they're watching this film with their children.
Wow.
Sons, daughters, because as you know, in today's society, we like to make heroes out of sports figures for only what they do on the playing field. I score 50 points a game, I hit 50 home runs a year, that's my sports hero. But we don't really know those men and women behind their athletic achievements. This is a story about a ball player somewhat forgotten. It's been 50 years almost since his passing, and we're hopefully going to educate folks, viewers, about a great ball player and really a great man, a great Catholic gentleman. And I think we've kind of captured that in 30 minutes.
I think so. And I also wanted to note the Hall of Fame vote, is that coming up?
It is. So timing is everything. This project, as I said, took almost 4.5, almost 5 years, and we had some ups and downs. The original intent was 60 minutes, and it's going to be on PBS, and all of our fundraising options and plans went down the tubes with COVID. And so we had to go to Plan B, which is let's just get it out in the public, and it just so happens that Hodges was nominated 2 weeks ago for the Veterans Committee that he falls into, which looks at 1950 to 1969, which is really in his wheelhouse there. That's his playing career through the Miracle Mets of 69. And his vote will be up on December the 5th. And so the film's release has generated some national attention in the media, especially in the New York area, and also LA. And so we're hopeful that the 16 voters, he needs 12 votes on December 5th, that they'll see the film, and hopefully it'll change some minds that, yes, we do need to consider the man off the field. We have to look at integrity, sportsmanship, and character, as the voting regs clearly state. And if they do that, then I would hope that he'll get all 16 votes, not just the 12 needed.
And Gil's wife and family are still
she is
for that, right?
Yeah, and this is probably, she's 96,
Wow.
And so it'll be another 5 years before Hodges comes up again, should he not be inducted on December 5th. So she still lives in the house in Brooklyn that they raised their children in back in the 50s. And it would be just a great gift to her for a man who truly deserves to be in. So, folks like Vince Scully, who have a lot of credibility throughout baseball, he has voiced on his social media channels, but he would like nothing more than for his 94th birthday on November 29th this year is to see Gil get inducted on the 5th. So we're very hopeful, praying a lot, which for your viewers, will learn about praying for Gil Hodges, where the churches in Brooklyn all prayed for him during a horrendous slump in the early 1950s. So an icon of that era that we're trying to bring back to today's generation to learn about.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Kevin. And anyone can watch the documentary for free at Gil Hodges, GilHodges film.com. And you can read more about it in the December 2nd issue of the Catholic Herald. As always, read more from the Catholic Herald at CatholicHerald.com, or we'll send you your very own copy of each issue so you can stay inspired and engaged. Call us at 1-800-377-0511. This podcast was produced by Matt Riedel. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful Advent.